Pecha Kucha 217, Smiley Show Animatic Progress. So late last week I started developing an idea to make a storyboard with full sound production. That's what an animatic is. I spent this week building all the parts so I could stick them together, and then you'll see the thing on YouTube. So the first place I stuck stuff was on Premiere Pro. I have a reading of the script, and I started the week just trying to add images to that sound file in Premiere Pro so I could actually get the flow of what is supposed to be a video. And the very first thing I have to contend with is the intro to the Smiley Show, which is both the actual Smiley Show logo and the set. And how it's being introduced to the audience. So there's a lot of things for me to have to separate and also create, and then figure out how to stick them back together again. So I'm doing like super rough conceptual storyboards to give myself an idea of where the camera's supposed to be at any given point to match to the audio. And the very first thing I realize is I probably want to separate the characters from the background so I can reuse both, because asset recycling is the best way for me to actually, control the workload. I'm also actually working in a large ratio, 16:9, as it would look on a widescreen monitor, which is a bit of a culture shock for me. There's a lot of real estate here I'm having to fill, as I'm also trying to conceive, what's actually happening visually. Do I want to have overly dynamic angles, or do I want to actually keep things static so I can reuse, the images I already have? This is still a question that's up in the air. Towards the end of me creating my kind of stock images, I was getting a little bit more comfortable with like producing stuff that doesn't need as much cleaning up, but the whole, I want the art to be good, but not so good that it's not rough around the edges. I feel like that's the kind of image I'm going for. And a lot of these images you're only going to see for a handful of seconds, as long as the dialogue lasts. So yeah, as I'm doing them this week, next week, I'll find the level of how much work I want to put in. But ultimately, the biggest problem has been using Adobe Audition. It's my first time in there. It took me about 45 minutes this week to even figure out how to record stuff, even though I already did the tutorial. This is just how it is when you sit down with Adobe software and it's alien. It doesn't give a fuck if I know what's going on or not. It's my job to come to it. It won't come to me. So having, figured out how to use my stuff, start recording a higher quality version of the dub with all the different characters, I'm kind of coming up against the fact that I'm not very good at this. This is it's a tall order, but I want to do it. It needs to be done. I'm not going to outsource it. So a lot of my week was spent trying to figure out how, if it's possible at all, for me to cheat my way to better quality audio. Mike Russell on YouTube, he clearly knows what he's doing. I'd like some of that knowledge myself. There's a lot you can do to edit voices to make them more palatable, but there's not so much you can do where it's not obvious the voice has been edited, and I don't want to edit these things, to the point where it's just farcical. I'm also having to figure out how to create my soundboard in a way where I can edit it and, keep track of it logistically for importing it into the actual movie. I did come across this great old guy who he's talking about using Adobe Audition, and the video is only like 4 years old, but it's all been produced like it's from the 80s. It's great. I don't think they're doing it ironically, which is charming. And he's just talking about generally how to improve the sound quality of what you do for the purposes of voice acting. And no sooner has he said it than I start doing kind of the things you're not supposed to do. I had my first example of talking into the mic so loud I clipped, as they call it, where, you say something so loud the speaker gives out and it just sounds fucking awful. As I was going through the different characters, I thought I'd better just, touch base with Christopher Sabat Vegeta, because that's kind of what I want to base my impression on. And I was astonished at the poor quality of the actual dub from the show. It's more the video games where they bother to give a fuck. It's just the fact they've been doing those recently, where the show is old as fuck these days. So after doing all that audio stuff, I actually went back to try and figure out the set. I haven't quite resolved everything. I'm closing in, but really the Smiley Show set intro shot is probably the most important image of the entire thing, so that's going to take a bit more research and development. I did some actual graphic design logo work to figure out what I wanted with the logo. Didn't overthink it. I don't really care. It's graphic design. I couldn't care less. And again, this is going to be on screen for all of 4 seconds, but it's going to be right in your bloody face. But as long as you can read it, it's really fine. And then I went actually to try and figure out what kind of art quality I want for the images. And I just want to keep it kind of loose. The kind of bright colors I'm using and the shading, the kind of cell shading with the blurring of the edges, I think that's good enough. I'm not spending too long on the art, but it takes as long as it takes. I do a few versions of the same image. Some of the composition's a bit too awkward. Like, I love drawing Vegeta crossing his arms, but I can't really figure out how to draw Vegeta crossing his arms. It's good enough though, that again, when you see it for 3 seconds, it's not really going to matter. The color does so much of the work. I'm happy with the art. I'm going to keep working with the audio, and I think before the end of next week this might be done, but I might sit on it to kind of polish some things, try and research some stuff, how to improve the quality even more. We will see. But that brings us to the end of Pecha Kucha 217, and I will see you next time.